Hello, I'm Louise Ross, the author of Women Who Walk, How 20 Women from 16 Countries Came to Live in Portugal, and the companion read and sequel, The Winding Road to Portugal, 20 Men from 11 Countries Share Their Stories. And these two books are a collection of mini memoirs, the stories of 20 women and 20 men from very diverse cultural backgrounds who moved country to country, sometimes independently, sometimes with partner and or family, en route to a life in Portugal, though for some it wasn't their final destination. And today I've asked Linda Patient, one of the interviewees from Women Who Walk, to read a couple of pages from her story, and then we'll talk a bit about her journey. Linda is originally from Canada, and we met at an improv theatre group that we both participated in. It was held weekly in our local neighbourhood outside of Lisbon. These days, Linda divides her time between Belgium and Portugal. And so, Linda, welcome and thank you for being available to talk with me. And tell me, is that improv group still going during these COVID times?
Hi, Louise. So kind of you to invite me to do this. This is going to be really fun. Improv, yeah. Well, no, we kind of tried online, but it's not the same as in person. And but the relationships of the women together in the group are strong. We have a WhatsApp group, and so we're carrying out in spirit, but. We have some ideas of how to do it online, but it's all new for us.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that. Linda, I'm going to see if I can get you to hold your mic up to your mouth a little bit closer
Okay.
so that we can hear you. And then when you're ready, I'd love you to read that excerpt.
Okay. All right. Here it goes. And a great choice because I sort of think this part of my life was a coming of age period, the beginning of the coming of age. So, and quite a meaningful point in my life. So here we go. It was the mid 80s, and I was a very naive 23-year-old when I started to work in Paris as an au pair, which is basically a glorified babysitter. And as I had a teaching degree, I felt overqualified. The family had a beautiful apartment in the chic Neuilly-sur-Seine quarter of Paris, and my room was in the attic, with only enough space for a bed, cupboard, and desk. I was living in the servants' quarters, among other apartments like mine. I became friendly with an elderly Spanish maid, and at the end of the hall, we shared a hole in the floor, our toilet, which we flushed with a bucket. My world had dramatically changed. In return for carrying out the nanny duties, I received free room and board, and I had time to go to school and learn French. 6 months working, studying, and living in Paris caused me to grow up fast, and it taught me to appreciate European life and to understand privilege. When my year abroad came to an end, I began teaching in Alberta, Canada, at my old high school, replacing my French teacher. My plan was to only stay a year, since my dream was to go to Japan and teach English. By the end of the year, I was in Japan. Life in Tokyo was sensory overload. I loved the excitement, but I felt overwhelmed by the constant sounds, new smells, and visual stimulus, particularly after working long hours. Dave, the man I would eventually marry, suggested I leave Japan earlier than I planned to start a life together. It was a welcome idea. We settled together in Calgary, Alberta, and I taught French and humanities with the Calgary School Board of Education. We married when I was 27, and after 4 years, we became a bit restless living in Calgary, and we explored volunteer opportunities with a non-governmental organization, but couldn't get a placement as a couple. So, determined not to stay, we sat down with a bottle of wine, opened up an atlas, and decided that if we were going to do this, co-create a life together, living and working abroad, we needed to make a decision about where. Eventually, we chose the university town of Montpellier in France because it had a certain beauty and energy. Initially, we had difficulty finding a home and jobs, but it worked out. And then 2 years later, I started thinking about having a family. I was 32. The French have an expression, je suis bien dans ma peau. I feel good in my skin. I didn't really feel good in my skin. I felt homesick for Canada. So we decided on Vancouver, another difficult place to find work and a very expensive city. However, again, we were attracted to the beauty of the city and environs and to the lifestyle. After 11 years in Vancouver, we decided our kids would benefit from the different life experiences of living abroad. I missed the quality of life in Europe. Something as simple as people sitting around the dinner table, enjoying meals together for hours. We loved France, and so somewhere south and near the Mediterranean appealed. Dave sent out a CV, and when the offers came in, we had a choice between Lisbon, Dublin, or Singapore. So at that time, someone said something to me like, we're either pulled to the past or to the future. Something was obviously pulling me to the past because when we came to Lisbon for the final interview, what felt right to me was that experience of old Europe.
Hmm. Thanks, Linda. Thanks so much. You know, that last line really struck me. I remember when you originally shared it with me, and I thought what you were going to say when you say we're sometimes pulled to the past or the future. I thought you were going to say to me, and I was pulled to the future, but you say no, I was pulled to the past. And I remember back then that I asked you to explain that to me. Could you explain it again?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know. I think the past sort of provided some kind of stability. I needed it, in exploring my identity as we do through life. I think my roots came from Europe. And in Canada, it's like a mosaic of different nationalities and identity. And I think I needed some grounding in where my past really was. And so even though I'm not from Portugal, I long to know my historic past of living, or our genetic makeup. And actually, somehow, sort of feel the Celtic side of me has a connection to Portugal. That strikes me often, and so I needed that at that period of time. And I have to say, as I go through this next phase in my life, I find myself looking towards the future in a
Oh,
very profound way. Yeah.
huh. Can you share a little about that?
Well, I think, it's just this period of my life. My kids have grown up. We've had this wonderful time in Portugal, and we decided we never expected to stay here for this long. We came with the idea of being here for 4 years and then going off on another adventure. And 4 years turned into 14. And it just felt like the right thing. It was a great place for the kids to grow up. And now the kids have launched and they're off doing their own exciting things. We we sort of find ourselves, well, do we stay here to the end, or do we go for one last exciting adventure? And so Dave found, well, actually, a headhunter contacted him as the time we were thinking about this, and this wonderful opportunity came up in Belgium, and so we're kind of co-creating life at this age in a new world that, as a teacher, is dramatically changing, and we can't. As an educator, we cannot continue educating in the same way. So I'm kind of confronted with this new reality of um, a future. And I'm really excited about that. I want to be part of that. So I feel grounded in the past and ready to explore a new future that we really are having difficulty trying to predict.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. But one of the things that you mentioned just then, which is so uh, pertinent to your story, because it's very clear right from the beginning, or at the point at which you and Dave meet and get together, if you like. You, as a partnership, as a team, as a couple, have very consciously co-created your life together and co-created the moves that you've made. I mean, it's quite admirable the way that you have done that. Can you talk a little about how you co-create together? What is the impetus behind that?
Well, thanks for pointing that out, because I do think I am very, very grateful that I have the husband that I do, because, let's face it, when we were young, Dave's a smart guy, and he had lots of possibility. And I thought, yeah, between the two of us, we kind of, well, I kind of invested in his his potential because of his background and his education and everything. But Dave never ever assumed that he was better than me, or that I should just follow him around. He was always, always trying to make sure that wherever we went and whatever we did would be good for me, and that every decision that we make, even today with our children, we discuss it as a team, and we are always saying, it's not what's best for him, it's not what's best for me, it's best for us as a team going forward. If I look back, I could have probably easily been someone who just followed him and been unhappy, and I know I would have been very unhappy. So I am very grateful that I give Dave a lot of credit, and I give his mother a lot of credit for that too, because um, they were very close, and she had lots of discussions about, you know, how important women are in being behind the man. That expression. Behind every successful man, there's a woman, and so I'm very, very grateful for that.
Thank you. And now you bide your time between Belgium and Portugal, but you're here in Portugal right now, heading back to Belgium at some point. But because of COVID, how does that look for you?
Sorry, moving on to Belgium.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, the backing and forthing is difficult because of what's going on with the restrictions and so on.
Yeah, and that's true. There, like, my husband Dave, he's there. I've got my one of my son, he is here at the moment, and my teaching is online, and it's just a bizarre, like, it's almost surreal. Um, but I also find it kind of exciting, because it's like it's forcing us as a family to be flexible and adaptable, and even like as a family, we're co-creating this new reality, and with Zoom and ways that we can talk to each other. It's just like we're just kind of going with the flow and trying to figure out how it works. And I don't know. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of bad things that come with COVID. I can't get to Canada to see my mother, and that's a terrible thing. Um, but it is what it is. So let's just find the silver lining where we can.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you, Linda. Thanks for sharing that fairly uplifting attitude and view. I certainly.
It's got to be.
Yeah. Well, for listeners who would like to read more about Linda, you can find her story in Women Who Walk, how 20 women from 16 countries came to Portugal. And Linda, thanks so much, and let's chat soon.
Okay, great. Thanks for the opportunity. Love the book.